The sun rose over Boston Harbor, but no light could brighten the fear settling over the town. The tea was gone, but the danger had just begun. Everyone knew that across the ocean, in fine halls filled with gold and polished floors, powerful men would hear what Boston had done. And when powerful men feel disrespected, they do not forget. They do not forgive. Word traveled like a spark leaping from candle to curtain. Messengers rode through the snow, carrying the news that an entire shipment of tea had been destroyed. People in other colonies gasped when they heard. They wondered how long before they too would have to choose between obedience and freedom. In quiet homes, families whispered about the night the sea swallowed the king's tea. Some cheered, some prayed, most waited. In London, the story hit like a punch to the chest. The king and his officials were shocked that a group of common workers and merchants dared to challenge the crown. Their faces flushed red with fury. Their pride stung deeper than any wound from battle. They saw Boston not as a city of people, but as a lesson waiting to be taught. A painful one. A painful lesson that would echo all the way across the ocean. They called the act treason. They called the colonists savages. They called for punishment swift enough to break every spirit in New England. If Boston wanted to misbehave, the British planned to make them regret ever lifting a hand against the empire. Soon, ships carrying British soldiers came into view. The harbor that once echoed with the creak of fishing boats now shook with the stomp of heavy boots. Redcoats filled the streets, their faces blank, their muskets resting on their shoulders. They knocked on doors without asking, stepping into homes that were never theirs. The law said they could. The people living there had no say. Every tavern corner had hushed voices. Every walk to the market felt like someone was watching. Friends held their tongues. Strangers looked away. People who once felt safe now wondered if safety was only a memory. The British blocked Boston Harbor. No ships in, no ships out. No goods, no business, no life. The ocean that once gave work to sailors and fishermen was now a locked gate. It was like someone tied a rope around the city's lungs and pulled tighter every day. Shopkeepers stood behind counters with nothing left to sell. Fishermen stared at the water that no longer welcomed them. Parents worried about feeding their children through the winter. This punishment did not break the colonists. It woke them up. Other colonies watched Boston suffer and realized something true and terrifying. If the crown could crush Boston today, it could crush them tomorrow. Neighbors hundreds of miles away began sending help. Barrels of food rolled over dirt roads from places Boston had never even met. Letters arrived filled with promises. You are not alone. The idea of being 13 separate colonies began to fade. One thought replaced it. We stand together. Leaders from towns and cities far apart gathered in one place. They came with anger, hope, fear, and love for their homes. They spoke for the farmers whose fields fed them. They spoke for the builders whose hands shaped their towns. They spoke for the mothers rocking babies who deserved to grow up free. These leaders argued and debated late into the nights, voices sometimes cracking with exhaustion. But they stayed because the future asked them to. For the first time, they asked a brave question out loud. What if the colonies were not just colonies anymore? What if they were a people who could choose their own laws, elect their own voices, shape their own world? The thought was wild, dangerous, beautiful. Meanwhile, the people who had thrown the tea into the harbor tried to go back to their lives. They returned to their shops, their farms, their families. They carried wood for fires. They kissed their children on the forehead. They showed up to work before dawn. They told no one what they had done, yet their hearts beat with the memory of that night. Some lay awake, wondering if soldiers would break down their door. Others wondered if their names would ever be known. All of them wondered if they had started something too big to stop. As months passed, tension stretched thinner and thinner, like a rope pulled from both ends, daring someone to tug just a bit harder. British patrols marched with heavier steps. Colonists stared back with stronger eyes. Neither side was willing to blink first. Nobody wanted war. Not the farmers who loved the sound of wind in their fields, not the shopkeepers who hoped each day the harbor would reopen, not the children who only wanted to play in the roads without fear. But war has a way of finding people who believe in something. Inside every home, families asked the same secret question. If the day came when they had to choose between safety and freedom, which would they pick? Boston waited for the next move. The British waited too. And in that uneasy quiet, the world held its breath. Because the spark that had started in the dark waters of Boston Harbor was now crawling along the ground, looking for something dry, looking for something that could burn, looking for its next piece of history to touch. Everyone knew another moment was coming, another night, another choice. Would the people of America obey the crown once more, or had they already crossed a line they could never step back from? Something was building, something bigger than tea, bigger than Boston, bigger than anyone could fully understand. One more clash, one more order, one more shove, and then everything would change forever. But when that next spark finally flew, no one could stop the fire it would start.